Good evening, PGA DFS fans. It is live before lock. And, well, Eric, I think I can actually say those words, or at least as close as we can get on the golf side to our live before lock. We are just about, 6 hours away, 7 hours away from teeing off the Open Championship the first time in a couple of years. And Eric and I, well, we are here tonight. We are going to break it all down for you. We've got the latest weather reports, how we're going to be stacking our tee times, and so much more. But before we get into all that, of course, we want to thank our sponsor of the show, Monkey Knife Fight. And of course, if you guys haven't tried them out already, go give them a whirl. They've got some great contests for the Open Championships this week. And if you haven't tried them out, well, they're player props contests. So a little bit different, of course, than your normal DFS. You actually don't need the time commitment or anything like that to study ownership. Nope, it's just a simple prop. Give you an example. This week, or I should say for round one, the opening line is set for 69.5. So, Eric, that's just about under par. We've got some big names in that realm. We've got Brooks Koepka to choose from, Justin Thomas, Rory Mcilroy. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as the show goes on. But something to keep in mind. Also, something to keep in mind, making your first deposit over there. Use promo code Awesemo and you get $100 deposit match. So Eric will certainly be discussing that. And of course, as we always do, we're going to start with some waves, weathers, and withdraw. We've got a lot of withdrawals, Eric. Any that you were really sad about? Maybe
Hideki, right off the bat. Hideki, it's sad because you want anybody who's won a major that year to continue to see if they can keep it going in some regard. And to lose him right off of the bat was really sad. I've got a buddy of mine, Ethan, if he's in the chat there. What's up, my dude? He just jams like 50, 60% Hideki every single week. So at least he has a shot this week, I think. So that's a plus. Or, I mean, he has to actually focus on making lineups with different dudes. Otherwise, doesn't really surprise me as much. I mean, Bernard Longer talked about how he hated this golf course. I believe he's now gone. We're looking Kevin Knott, Matthew Wolff, Bubba Watson, Zach Johnson, Sung J M. Thank God I don't have to think about playing him at $7,600. So that's saving me a lot of money this week. And of course, Rip one John Daly, who did not make the trip over.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of God, it looks like the God Sham God says that we sound alike. So I'll take that. God Sham God, a little Providence College Friar, little notation there, if you will. I don't know if you go back that far, Eric, in the college basketball game for God Sham God. If you don't know who that is, check him out. I know you're a basketball fan. He's goes way back. In any case, let's get back to some golf here. Got an interesting one. I wanted to talk about the opening tee, right? We know that at least what we see right now, the wind is going to be 25 mile an hour every day, all day long. Doesn't look like there's going to be pockets where it's that much stronger or even that much less. So given that, we're going to have pretty average weather for everybody. We do want to maybe try and take advantage, though, of pockets of tee times. Everybody starts off of the first hole. The first tee time sends out three Englishmen, Richard Bland, Marcus Armitage, and one other guy. Escape
Andy Sullivan.
Yes, who is of favorite of our buddy Ben Raza, who's in Saratoga, taking the night off. So I know it's a first tee time, but Richard Bland has made some noise, and Andy Sullivan has found himself in a winning millionaire maker lineup at this championship before. So are you interested in either of those guys right off the bat? We might go to like a hot take, but they are the first tee time, so they're going to give us an indication of how the course is going to play.
Yeah, I don't think any of those three are going to be a big part of my portfolios whatsoever this week. But you lead it into a great point, which is looking at these pockets of tee times, looking at how they all set up. We've both got pulled up. If you go to the open.com, go to the leaderboard and just group it by tee times that way. Gives you the best look and vantage point starting at 6:35 a.m. local time, which is what I'll be talking about with some of this win. Tee times go all the way till 4:16 p.m. I had talked on Monday's show with Ben about how there's these 10-hour like a 10-hour tee time wave. Everybody tees off of one. There is no back nine kind of draw we can look at for showdown. There's no back nine where that's going to be starting. It is just a running tee time for almost 10 hours. That means that if you're going to get some kind of a draw in any regard, and I've also spoken to grouping tee times, even when it doesn't look like that's the weather draw, just in case something does change, because Friday is going to be volatile, even as of right now when we're speaking. And even for Thursday, I haven't even come to like a foregone conclusion about how I'm going to be grouping my tee times. But starting with this early tee time, where are you kind of looking at putting most of your exposure to certain players?
Yeah, so I think the first kind of batch of golfers that I'll get interested in, Christian Bezuidenhout is going off just about that 732 round. He's been fantastic this year. He hasn't missed a cut in a long time. And then you get a stretch of guys from him to at the 732 tee time to the 814 tee time. And this is local. So, depending on what coast you are, of course, take off 5 hours for the East Coast, 8 hours for the West Coast. But we're going to talk as actually Eric and I were speaking about this. We're going to speak as if we're in Scotland or in England this week when we talk about our tee times. So just understand that. So with that being said, Bezzy, Hovland, Palmer, Paul Casey, Abraham Answer, Ian Poulter, Brooks Koepka. That's kind of the start that I'm looking at stacking guys together, especially going something like Brooks Koepka, Victor Hovland. I think in that range, they pair up pretty well together. And I think there's enough, say even Christian Bezuidenhout at 7,400 on DraftKings to make a pretty quality line in this group of, say, 4 or 5 tee times.
Yeah, if you're going to put Brooks Koepka in there, don't forget about the GOAT, lefty swinger Garrick Higo, sitting there at 803 as well. So I'm a big fan of putting a lot of these guys. I was planning on being very underweight to Brooks Koepka. I am most majors because people click on him for the narrative that he just shows up in major championships. And I think there's something to it mentally for him where he just kind of gears up. Maybe he practices more. Maybe he does just a little bit more prep than he does other weeks. But I'm probably going to be closer to the field than what I thought I was going to be on him. And part of it is liking some of these early waves, trying to group them together because the quality of player just looks really, really good in some of these early sections. I mean, you have the chalk guy that we'll talk about with Daniel Berger, Joaquin Niemann, not going to be super high on him this week either. But Jason Kokrak, Abraham Answer, Ian Poulter, Paul Casey, Thomas Detry, all big parts of my portfolio this week, kind of hoping that this early section on Thursday, because I think people are starting to talk about Thursday afternoon being a little bit more advantageous because the Friday AM looks better. I'm happy to be grouping some of these earlier times together because I think you can round out a pretty solid lineup, and the weather draw is so volatile for Friday still.
It really is. Tell me something, Eric. Have you ever seen this show Scorpion on TV?
No, I have not.
Okay, I haven't either. I'm getting referred to or looked like Ari Steidham. I don't know. I've never seen the show, so I'm literally just talking out of the side of my mouth here because I have absolutely Stidham, like Jared Stidham, the quarterback that never panned out.
Harry
right?
Stidham is a CEO of corporate graphics and printing. We just gave him a shout out from LinkedIn. That was from I don't know who that is. Jared Stidham, didn't he play football? Isn't he the quarterback for New England?
Yeah. I don't.
Who am I looking for? Well, I'll find it as we're going along.
I don't know. It's a Scorpion. Something to do with the TV show Scorpion. In any case,
all right.
Back to Joaquin Niemann for a second. He's a guy that I highlighted and want to talk to you about. We can even throw in, say, Victor Hovland because he hasn't played here yet. What do you think it is about the Open Championship among all the others that tend to give golfers fits their first, second, or even third time at the event? You can look at Justin Thomas as a good example, missed the cut the first couple of times. Same thing with Joaquin Niemann. Same thing with, say, Abraham Answer, who I saw also in this range. Just not getting it done in guys that, we would expect to play well in majors.
Didn't Justin Rose nearly win it as an amateur, though?
He did.
Okay. So he played good his first run out of the gate, his first couple as a professional, but the things that gives you a fit, the things that give you fits at a British Open, it's going to be how firm and fast it can play at times. And then it's going to be bunkers, hitting it in massive bunkers. And that's going to be two major parts. And also, do not hit it in this fescue because they are talking about how absurd and penal this is. You start spraying some, I don't know, a guy named Jordan Spieth, who I'm sure we're going to talk about at some point. If you start spraying it around the lot, there is not a lot of savior there. I'm trying to focus a little bit on guys who are just getting the ball in play. And Joaquin Niemann probably not going to be a big part of my portfolio because of that.
Yeah, Niemann has been strong off the tee. Don't get me wrong. He certainly has, but I think his ability around the green is what concerns me, especially given the fact that we know we're going to get some runoff into the rough. We know that he's going to have to lay up, not going to be able to get to the greens all the time. And it's when he misses greens that he runs into some trouble. So, all right, about a break of an hour, in my opinion, from the 8:14 local time to the 9:14 time that I want to chat with you about. Sam Burns instantly this week was the talk. Came in at 6,300 on DraftKings. Instantly, people realized that it was a misclick. Should have been 7,300. I I think it's pretty clear, given the fact that who's priced at 7,300, Burns should have been there. He's not. He also happens to get paired up with Lucas Herbert, who's coming in playing some of the best golf of anybody, I would say, given the fact that he just won a couple weeks, coming off a top 10, both at opens that would suggest he could play well here. So do you want to play either? And can I convince you in an aggressive lineup to play both of them?
I'm playing both of them for sure. Lucas Herbert was the first guy I had listed on my sheet as, I don't know if people know who this guy is, but he's pretty darn good. So I really do like getting to a lot of Lucas Herbert. And then on the other side of it, I think that we're looking at Sam Burns not being like sub 10% now. If you had told me that coming in off of Monday talking with Ben, I would have been floored by it.
Yep.
I find it impossible not to be getting to him now. I'm right at double the field at the moment here. He's under 10%. He's sitting at 8. I have 16 in my 150. I'm also, got a number of Millie Maker lineups and everything. He's going to be a big part of what I do, especially because I'm shocked that people decided that there's something better that exists in this range, and there's not. Like, I like Lucas Herbert, and we talk about his form, but I think Sam Burns, is just a way too quality of player to be 6,300. It was going to be an ownership issue for me where if he's 20%, yeah, give me half of that, give me none of it. But now that's not an issue apparently. And I'm shocked by it. Maybe I'll be kicking myself when I see he's 15% in the milli or something as soon as we pull that up. But I trust our ownership projections. They are the best in the business. And I just got to be riding with Sam Burns now.
Yeah, at 6,300, it's definitely hard to pass up given the fact that he performed well at the Scottish Open T18 last week. And listen, if we're playing Sam Burns, would you sign the card right now for a T18? Because I certainly would. Given 6,300, I don't know that we could win the $10 millionaire maker with him coming in 18th at 6,300, but we certainly could win the $100 one and definitely the $4,400 one. So,
or the $5. Yeah. And that's, 110,000, you're looking at 18. My thing is that it gives you access to builds that nobody else can do as well. It gives you the opportunity to play Rory 2 9K guys and moving on with your day. It gives you options to go to Rahm, maybe even another 10K guy with him, and then punts. Like, you have builds that you have access to. And Sam Burns, top 20 in the markets. I mean, he is so much better than everybody in that range. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, he definitely is. Now, if you're looking to go on the tee time stacks, I'll pitch it that way to you. The tee time after the Burns Herbert tee time is Spieth, Deshambo, and Grace. I know that Grace may interest you a little bit, maybe not. Definitely does me. He's having a great season. Obviously holds a scoring record at this event, has a 63. But then it's definitely, I think, an interesting debate for Bryson DeChambeau. We already know that you and I are on complete opposite ends of the earth on Jordan Spieth, which we're going to talk about in the top end fade department because I know he's your top end fade. We'll save the Spieth chatter for there. Let's talk about DeChambeau. Here's another guy that has been seen crying at the back of the range at Carnoustie at this event. Has not even come close to the top 25, let alone the top 10 or 5. This just can't be a spot where Bryson breaks out of it, can he?
I will say that if we look at a two British Open sample size and we say that that's what the person is, we're probably making some kind of a mistake. Like 2018 and 19. So it was 18 that he did the crying in the back of the range. I posted it in the YouTube chat the other day. I believe it's just the 18 and 19 that we have on him, correct? And check if I'm wrong about that, but I don't know. Bryson DeChambeau, didn't he win the John Deere and come over and play here immediately after that? He didn't play well that year out of the gate. Right. But I like playing a little bit of him. I'm not getting out of line by playing a ton of him in this spot, but he is such a volatile player where he plays such extremes. And if he's getting the ball in play, hitting it far is never a bad thing on any golf course on planet Earth. And I say that multiple times, but the advantage of being a long hitter isn't necessarily just that you're able to hit driver 360. It's that you're able to hit a 4-iron 270. You're able to do stupid things that nobody else can do. You're going 4-iron wedge into holes that other people might be going 3-wood 6-iron or something of that nature. And so I think Bryson DeChambeau is volatile enough where I think you should have him in your 150. I'm right at 10%. I feel good about having 10% of him. I don't think that that's going to be a make or break number. It's about at the field. I find it hard to talk myself into wanting to go like double, triple the field on him in this spot. But Bryson DeChambeau, we know the opportunities he have. He could flat out miss this cut. He could also win this event by 3. And that's the way I feel about him most weeks.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. First off, I want to say thank you to I Hustle For It. First of all, nice screen name. We love the Hustle For It. Nice super chat there. So appreciate that. Now, back to DeChambeau. You said a couple of things I want to just go a little bit deeper on, more of a general feel of the tournament rather than a specific player instance. So let's say DeChambeau is hitting driver wedge where somebody's going to be hitting driver 7-iron. The fact that the greens are going to be running at a 10 on the stimp meter, and the fact that we know this area has gotten a tremendous amount of water, the course is going to play soft. Does that lessen Bryson's advantage on that front specifically, given that most people are probably going to be able to hold 5-irons this week?
No, because then we bring in the distance factor where he's also the one who's able to carry those shorter clubs the furthest. And yeah, of course, being able to hold a 5-iron on the green for everybody is an advantage here, but he's hitting clubs that you wouldn't even dream of another dude possibly. Some of the, when he gets clubbed at the PGA Championship and you're hearing like 8 and 9-iron from 215, like that's just outrageous stuff. And that's impossible to replicate. And when you have a shorter club, the disparity of shots gets trimmed down just drastically. And it doesn't matter what quality of player you are. Like when we talk about good long iron players and good wedge players, I mean, we're also talking about what that disparity is between their shot patterns. And so we have to be very, very careful, not to say that just because he might not be good with his wedges or something, doesn't mean, it means that he's also better than the average person, because his club he's hitting from 175 to 225 is not going to get him nearly and in nearly as much trouble as other spots. But sure, I would say having softer greens maybe cuts down on his advantage a little bit, but having softer fairways, which again, I still think they're going to be running out. It looked like on TV watching some of the Golf Channel coverage that a couple of the shots that were getting hit, they were still running out a little bit in the fairways. So I'm not thinking that that's going to be a huge benefactor for him, but for sure the shorter clubs into greens.
And maybe by the weekend with 25-mile-an-hour winds and no rain expected, it could dry up pretty freaking quickly. Not going to lie. Another super chat, Wizards fan. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. We'll go 5 hours later and talk about the tee time of Colin Morikawa, Cory Connors, and Sebastian Munoz, teeing off at 126. Wizard fan, he wants to know about Cory Connors. Interesting. I think that if you like Cory Connors, you probably like Colin Morikawa as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, they definitely have the similar comps. And
I don't know if I like either, to be honest. I just,
okay.
Very comparable guys, I think, this week.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't talked about, I feel like Cory Connors is just like gone a little bit under the radar since he got really hot here in the spring.
Had that hole-in-one run where every other round he was getting.
Yeah, he was just ripping the soul out of Ben Rasa every single day, and it was really fun to watch. I was going to say, if you want to watch somebody be tortured, it's way more fun to watch somebody go, I'm going to die, than say, I'm going to die. And Ben's definitely the former. He very understatedly beats up on himself, and it is a beautiful, beautiful thing to watch. Hope he's having fun with the horses here this weekend. That would be great. I'm sure we'll be in the premium betting Slack going back and forth. I'll be trying to catch a couple winners, but yeah, Cory Connors definitely fallen off here a little bit of late. Ball striking extraordinaire, 7,100, a lot different than the 9K you were paying for him as recently as I don't know, back at the Wells Fargo, Valspar, definitely had some inflated prices in a couple of those spots coming off of his hot run at the Masters, at the RBC Heritage, at a number of other places. I don't mind getting to a little bit. It's not my favorite thing to do in the entire world. I think I ended up with a little bit, but it's nothing that's going to be extreme.
For sure. All right, let me tell you about a couple of free premium tools and data we've got going on today. For NBA, we've got the finals coming up, so we've got a lot of shows. After us, stay tuned. We are not the only thing going on tonight. You're going to get showdown and single game projections today free. And for PGA, the top golfers tool, one of the many tools we have going on behind here. So it's a great way to just see some of the things we have to offer. A couple of more things. You already mentioned, we've got ownership projections, some of the best in the industry. The player projections, it doesn't just stop with the week-long stuff. Alex has got some of the best showdown projections I've ever seen. The guy hits a GPP once every other week. So even after we get started, don't forget we've got showdown projections. And of course, come join us on the golf side. Just $8.95 for just the golf for the week. And if you want to join Awesemo Plus, on its entirety? Well, use promo code PGA Live Before Lock, and you're going to get 25% off your first week. You see it there on the screen below believe it or not, this is not a wig. This is my real hair. You can see the 25% off coupon code right below it. So let's go on and talk about a couple major preparations. Of course, we'll talk about plenty of more tee time stacks as we go along, but want to move along and talk about a few other things. First, just kind of my notes from the previous 3 days. As you know, coverage is all day long. We get it on the Golf Channel. We hear everything. We see every interview. So let's start off with what I saw from Brooks Koepka. He created a narrative instantly, was not shy about it, said, I hate this golf course in so little words. I'm paraphrasing. He definitely didn't say I hate it, but he also definitely didn't say that he enjoyed it. So is this just Brooks Koepka playing chess and creating something where he can get up because he's bored with the Bryson stuff and needs something else? Or do you think it could affect his play this week?
I never know with this dude. I don't. And trying to figure him out has been an anomaly of my DFS life for the last however many years. I can guarantee you one thing. If I could guess on what Brooks Koepka was going to do any given week, I would have, if you just gave me his results and nobody else in the field, I would be smashing DFS golf like every single week. It would be unfair because it feels like there are so many majors where you just end up needing him, like the PGA Championship, where I had my main lineup had 3 of the top 10 guys in it, including Phil Mickelson. My main lineup had Phil in it, and I lost money because it had no Brooks Koepka. It had no Brooks Koepka, and I had a missed cut guy too, but that doesn't matter. But what I'm saying is that it comes down to trying to figure out with him. Just what's he going to do? Like, if he shows up with, it doesn't even matter like his mood, because he's a disgruntled human being all the time as it is. Yeah. And he's annoying and I don't like him as a person, but there's no denying that he has a fantastic golf game. There's no denying he can turn it on in ridiculous spots, has way more majors than you would ever expect him to. If you had looked, 5 years ago and said, Brooks Koepka is going to go on this heater, you would never have believed it at that point. But I think you got to be able to consider him this week anyway. I know in 2019, his caddy was from Northern Ireland. He was literally caddied at that golf course. Can't remember the name of it right now, but he's had some outrageously good results. If you quantify it based off of link style golf courses, Brooks Koepka jumps to the top of most rankings. He just jumps, and it's such an outlier extrapolated piece of data because it's a limited sample, but he's played well in some Open Championship, British Opens. He's definitely had the pedigree for this. And so I think you got to have a little bit, but again, I just don't want to get carried away. I don't want to get burned by him this week, but he's also not going to be the reason I win anything.
So the thing with Koepka, I'm from Rhode Island, as most people know. I live in Florida now, but from Rhode Island and been a, Tom Brady guy my whole life, which means I was a Patriot guy. And Belichick always used to talk about bulletin board material. He would find what Ed Reed would say from the Ravens and put it on the bulletin board. Brooks Koepka is Bill Belichicking himself. He needs to do that. And it's clear, PGA Championship, we saw him on Saturday night basically taking the biggest cheap shot at DJ that he's ever taken, and took a shot at basically everybody else there, saying nobody else was good. Nobody else had won a major. I'm going to win. This is just how he gets up, and I'm okay with it because the results follow. 17 of 20 of the last majors, he's been inside the top 20. I mean, that's absolutely insane. He's clearly defining himself on majors, defining his career. Now, with that being said, Eric, do you think there's going to be a point where maybe the results start to fall off, or we go on a long winless drought where the pressure now starts to build on, hey, Brooks, you say you're only good in majors, but where's the wins, man? We're not getting it done. You think that actually ends up affecting him eventually?
I really don't know. And you could tell me he would go in any direction. I find it impossible to get a pulse on this guy. I mean, the 5th at the Travelers breaks that narrative. He was optimal that week. He ends up being optimal his last tournament. 4th at the U.S. Open. 2nd, yeah, sure, he phoned in the Palmetto Championship. I don't think anybody rostered him in the Palmetto Championship anyway, because they knew that he was looking forward to the U.S. Open. He ended up limping himself around the U.S. Open. What was that?
His brother, he got there because they gave his start to his brother.
Oh, got it. Well, thanks.
It's okay. That happens at least once or twice a year, and I'm fine with it.
If my brother was trying to make it on the PGA Tour, sure, I'd give him a start by showing up, and I'd make sure I missed the cut, and I flew out the Saturday exactly like he did. So there's that. Good times. But the Byron Nelson was such a weird result. 105th there, 71, 70, misses the cut. It's such an easy golf course, doesn't even play remotely well. The Masters, he missed the cut. You got to think he cared at the Masters, but I think the knee was probably in its worst condition at that point. I don't know. Like Brooks Koepka, you can be the judgment call on this one on what direction to go there. But for me, it's almost like be at the field, be maybe a tiny bit under, and just live with the result every single week, because I can't possibly have him be a reason to be like, I would kick myself if I had 25% of him and then lost because of Brooks Koepka.
I have 3 $500 lineups on FanDuel this week and around $1,300 millionaire makers, somewhere around there. He's in one of those $500 on FanDuel, and he's in 3 of 13 on DraftKings. That's just probably a little bit above the field on both.
That's a good stand.
Yeah. Not quite my highest note guy in that range, but still, I would say pretty heavily. One of the reasons that I went a little bit heavier on Koepka is I just didn't feel as comfortable going to DJ or even to say to Rory Mcilroy. But after digging into Rory a little bit and listening to his presser, it seems like there is no golfer that is in the world that is better coming off a miscut than Rory Mcilroy. So does that intrigue you more? Or are you just saying, since we hired Pete Cowan, the off the tee game is average at best, worse than Jordan Spieth?
Oh my God. What are we supposed to say about this? What do you want me to do? This became a question about one thing, and we're going to turn it in a completely different direction.
That's what I do. I do.
I'm going to just go down the Jordan Spieth narrative here. So Jordan Spieth, I like Rory. I like him very much. Brooks, we've established that. Jordan Spieth is insanely owned. Jordan Spieth has been insanely owned through the duration of, it feels like, this entire major season. Now, I would say he's a little bit lower owned than Xander. I probably like the two of them equally, but I don't necessarily like either of them compared to taking the rest of the range at depreciated ownership. I think the 19th, 18th at the US Open, the Memorial, those are results that aren't going to kill you by any means. The second at Charles Schwab, he went on a 4 of his 5 tournaments in that little stretch from April till the end of May, finished with top 10s. Was on just an epic heater. But Jordan Spieth is going to hit shots offline here. It's a question of whether or not he can recover from some of these spots. And I don't know, he's going to hit more offline shot. And you talk about his off the tee game, how outrageous it's been. And there's no question that if you look over the course of this last year, it is shocking to me how good he has been over the course of his last 50 rounds. Strokes gained tee to green, 10th, of a ball striking total, 24th. 6th in strokes gained around the short game. He does his normal stuff that Jordan Spieth does, which is just get the ball in the hole at a certain point of it, but has been better off the tee. But if it regresses even slightly, we're not playing golf in a bubble here. We are playing golf in the elements. I get nervous about going overweight to Jordan Spieth. I like him better this week than I've liked him probably any of those other weeks previously, and I'm still not getting above 10%.
So it sounds like a couple of things there. You made all my points for me, so I don't even have to bring up any of those. So appreciate that.
I knew this is coming.
Thank you. Here we go. The thing that I see is at 9,700, do we want to really spend an extra $1,000 and get Brooks Koepka? Now, I think you can make an argument for Jon Rahm for sure. But if we're talking about straight Koepka to Spieth, I don't think that we get that much more going to Koepka than we do Spieth at this point.
I get $100 less. I get Justin Thomas. I get Justin Thomas.
I think that is probably another bit. Now let's transition to Thomas quickly, because my note on him was, and this is a true golf thing. You and I, both big time golfers, both played college golf. So the intricacies of the game, we enjoy. We like to talk about. This one is very intricate, but he switched his putter shaft.
Yep.
He saw instant results at the Scottish Open. And we know that's been the crutch of his game this year. Justin Thomas is my second biggest play on the slate, maybe even tied with Jordan Spieth. I have basically the same amount of ownership on both of them right now.
I did not know such things. I hadn't looked at the pro plays, but you all need to be looking at the pro plays as we're getting up to lock. Check out what the DK exposures are of the best players in the world, of Jason Rouslin, of one Alex Baker, Steve Buzzard, Ben Rasa, everybody. We have our pro plays. You can basically see our weighted adjustments. Now, I will throw the one caveat out this week. I can promise you we're all going to be bunching together tee times, and it's going to change some of the exposures slightly, but it's not going to change our overall outlook of the players and what we're going to be doing with some of the top tier guys, because I feel like they can kind of overcome a lot of elements in some spots. Plus, it looks like it's going to be sustained wins throughout. It's going to be finding smaller edges, I think, than normal in this type of a tournament here, where you have 10 hours of tee times on Thursday and Friday, where you're trying to group out small pockets and make sure that that's where you get 4 or 5 out of those pockets. But I think Justin Thomas, first of all, I love that we're both on board with him, because that putter has been not just a crutch. It's like playing golf with no legs. He's been just completely undercut in this regard. He has had no ability to get the ball in the hole. Now, the US Open, we saw some life 4.8 strokes gain putting there, but we've seen so many of these spiked minus 8.4 at the Memorial, and he still finished 42nd, which that is almost impossible to imagine, losing 8.5 strokes putting and still finishing 42nd, because if you're flat in that regard, that's a top 5. It's a top 5. And then we have minus 6.5 at the Valspar, minus 5.8. It's just getting that putter to be flat or a little bit better, because from an iron perspective, there's nobody else who's going to be flag hunting the way that Justin Thomas is capable of doing, even in these elements.
Totally agree. Here's the thing also about the Open Championship that I think Justin Thomas learned really the hard way. A couple of years ago, 2017, was in third after day one, ended up missing the cut. You saw a couple of other missed cuts in there as well, but we finally saw a break at Portrush where he came in 11th. Finally figured out that you have to embrace the elements. You're going to get bad stretches of holes where the wave, you have the worst weather. You've got 35-mile-an-hour gusts and a swell coming off the ocean that nobody else gets. You got to deal with those. You got to find a way to come in those holes, 1 over, even par. Now, again, since we were talking about Jordan is probably the guy that I would want on my roster over most everybody else if the ball is being sprayed from everybody, right? From 50 yards and in, is there anybody else that you'd want in the entire world than Jordan Spieth to make a par?
I mean, that's Christian Bezenhout.
Bezenhout's not bad. Yeah, that's probably.
I mean, if you want me to pick a guy, Patrick Reed gets the ball in hole. I think that's get ball into hole. That's really what we're looking at for a lot of these dudes, getting some of the around the green stuff. I think, as you said, you're going to miss greens. You're going to hit the golf ball in uncomfortable places. For me, the biggest issue with Jordan is that it gets so offline and he can't even recover from that. There were some certain times, and you want to talk about running so good. The guy ran so good when it came to his British Open title. Number of the spots he hit it in throughout that entire golf tournament was just madness, where he was making par from. But again, that's a skill set. And whether or not I can quantify it to an extreme degree, it doesn't change that this is a results-based deal. And if Jordan Spieth is able to put up the best number at the end of the day, you're going to need him. How about that for analysis? Play the guys who score the lowest. There we are.
We love that type of hard-hitting analysis here on the Live Before Lock.
You're welcome.
And if some of that analysis ends up helping you win the $1 million, well, we want to hear about it. Way you hear about it is tweet us at our Awesemo Hall of Fame Twitter account. And what you're going to do, that's also going to give you the ability to win some free Awesemo stuff. So what you can do, download the Awesemo avatar from awesemo.com/avatar, place in the top 3 contests with over 5,000 contestants. So the Millionaire Maker $10 with 250,000 contestants, that would qualify. Tweet the wins at Awesemo Hall of Fame account. You win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. And we also, of course, love to go through the screen grabs and screenshots. So love that. Make sure you tweet us when you win. Of course, if we lose, the only way that Eric and I feel better is hearing that you guys have done well. So, all right, let's go into our top end fade here. We've talked about a lot of golfers. We haven't necessarily said who we're going to fade. And for me this week, Xander Schauffele presents the best opportunity to fade based on what's going on in his golf game. If you put him up against Justin Thomas right now, the only difference is that Xander Schauffele was a little better with his putter. But Eric, he got in so far into his own head with his putter that he tried to go to arm lock for a couple of weeks. That experiment is done. He's back to his regular putter, but clearly that signifies that he's in his own head, that he's not performing as good as he can. I will take Justin Thomas every single time in this situation right now, as long as I'm not too over-owned on JT. That's who I'm taking. So Xander Schauffele is a fade for me this week.
I'm with you. I'm much lower. I think in my last run, I had maybe a little bit more than what I wanted to. I'm going to be around the 6%, 5% range on a guy who's 20 something percent owned. I can't get there, and I refuse to. I don't even think it's necessarily that, because from what I remember, his comments about the arm lock, where he was like, if these guys are going to do it, I'm going to do it, because I feel like it's it's an unfair advantage. And it wasn't even something that was motivated by anything other than him being frustrated that other guys were making a lot of putts. And he wasn't putting awful, but he wasn't putting nearly as good as what a guy like Xander Schauffele we were accustomed to seeing out of him. I think the arm lock, even you saw the US Open, I think that was the main instigator. The guy was the best player in the field. 11.8 strokes gained tee to green, a ridiculous number. 4.8 off the tee, 5.2 on the approach. Lost a 1.8 strokes putting. Finished seventh. That was a big, you can't say, oh, he's going to beat Jon Rahm, who was fantastic that entire week too. But Jon Rahm made putts and he did not. And that was definitely the difference in the US Open, because nobody gets to 11.8 very often in the tee to green category. So if Xander's striping it, anything is moving in the positive direction coming off that result. But previous to that, he had 3 positive outings at the Memorial, the PGA, and the Wells Fargo, none of which being complete dog tracks like we've seen the last 3 weeks on the PGA Tour. So I think we got to be looking at Xander basically as being a strong play, but ownership is going to dictate a lot of it for me and for Spieth. It's that I don't think they're bad plays. It's that I think I can get more leverage on the field by going other directions. And I don't feel like there's that big of a drop off.
I don't at all. I totally agree. He did not make it in any of my 3 big dollars on FanDuel. He's in 2 of 13 on DraftKings right now for me. So again, that's the underweight there with Schauffele. Now, putting Spieth and Schauffele, if you got 150, let's say that they're both projected at 25%, who are you going to be underweight more? Because it also sounds like, sorry, one more thing. We've got a guy in chat that is joining you, and he's also fading Jon Rahm. It looks like our user PY23. That is bold.
Good luck with that. Let me know how that goes.
Yeah, fading Rahm, I can't get behind. The other 2 guys, Schauffele and Jordan, it sounds like you're on board with him.
Then I'm on board with Jordan.
Yeah, fading Jordan and fading Schauffele.
Yeah, I would say where ownership is at, I would rather get to more Jordan than Xander, which I don't think is a sentence I've ever uttered in my entire life. So yeah, I want that.
Coming around.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's not that I'm never going to come around. I saw the dude shot like 79 or 80 at Riviera when he was in college. And since then, I just thought that he just sprayed it everywhere and was an absolute luck box. But there is that.
He does.
He does do that. He plays a golf of which I am not familiar, but not in the Tiger Woods format, more in the, I don't know how he's doing this. But I think that, yeah, Xander, it's going to be Xander as a fade. I'm closer on Brooks than I've ever been before. And then, Xander, it's definitely going to be chopped because of that. Was there one other name that you put into that grouping?
No, not this one.
That's it. That's all that I have for you then.
Awesome. Love it. All right, let's go into some leverage values then. One of the guys that I want to bring up right away in our chat, Mr. Godsham God, gave us a super chat and wants to really know about this. Bobby McIntyre. Here's a guy that 24-year-old Scotsman has not missed a cut at a major yet. Top 10 at the Open Championship last year. A top 12 at the PGA or Masters this year, getting him into the Masters next year. Had a decent week last week. Here's where I'm using him. 8,500 on FanDuel. 7,300 on DraftKings. He's the same price as Fowler in English on DraftKings, but $800 and $900 cheaper than them on FanDuel. It's an easy use for me. Not that I'm not using him on DK, but my main ownership is over there. I like him a lot, though. I can't lie.
I don't hate it. And especially where his ownership's at. I think that especially as you move up in stakes, I think that he's definitely going to be even lower owned than what we're seeing as that number. I don't think people are going to land on Robert McIntyre and be clicking that, but he's a lefty who's shown some pedigree. He's also shown some win equity on the European Tour on some of these golf courses. I mean, he has gotten himself in the mix more so at some of the more targety type golf courses. I believe he competed very well in Spain. I think I was on him in a Spain golf tournament like 2 years ago or a year ago. But a lefty who can get it going, I really don't mind going to them, especially because, again, in higher stakes stuff, he's just not going to be a name that people click on that often whatsoever. Nothing in his previous results say there's anything great or awful about his form. 35th at the US Open, 12th at the Masters. That he's shown an ability to make cuts there. I think at his price point, he's going to be one of the lower owned guys to be going to from that lower 7K range. I mean, the talk is all about Berger. It's about Higo. It's about Molinari even. People getting there in some spots where I can't. Harris English, 7,300. Yeah, that's the main one. You have a great pivot, I think, in Robert McIntyre.
I do. Totally agree. All right, we're going to go back up the board a little bit. My guy, Patrick Cantlay. When they printed the price of 8,900, I'm like, why did they have a gap between 9,600 and 9,300 of Thomas Newstazen? It should have been Cantlay there, in my opinion, given his recent form, given his Open Championship form. So do you think that Patrick Cantlay, as I said, is a top 5 value on the board this week?
He's in my cash lineup. So yes, I think that he's a fantastic play out of my 3. And I'm not even to joke with you. I part of my cash exposure is just leverage, or sorry, not leverage. It's hedging some of my tournament exposures. I have I have Spieth, Thomas, and Cantlay in that lineup right now. I feel very confident with where it's at. Spieth, I'm not going to be getting to it as much in tournaments, but I think having him as a staple, I could see him getting 20th and being a great cash play and not necessarily busting me in tournaments. So I'm happy to be clicking on the name there, but 8,900 is not a Patrick Cantlay price. It is a misprice. There's a reason that he's going to be so highly owned in tournaments. I'd say if there's one thing that I might say, I think he might end up being the highest owned player in this tournament, and I would not be surprised by it at this point. There are a number of people. I think Jordan Spieth, there's people that are kind of, I'll still say that it's Xander. Xander or Rahm will definitely be maybe your 2 highest owned players, just because they're both playing excellent, and everybody loves to play Xander in DFS, it feels like. So I'll go lesser on that for that regard, and you and I will be in the same boat, and we can tilt on Twitter together. But Justin Thomas and Patrick Cantlay are just kind of misprices, 9,600 and 8,900. Big part of what I'm going to be doing this week.
Me too. I can't lie. Now, with that being said, is he your biggest leverage in this value range, even with his ownership? Or are you looking to get more leverage, say, on a guy like Will Zalatoris at 8,500 coming in, 5% projected own right now by us, or maybe even down to Scotty Scheffler, first timer, 8,200, say 12% own? Where are you looking to get to 3X? Is it through Cantlay's 50% ownership that we'd have to go, or say Zalatoris or Scheffler around 20%?
As I'm looking at it, definitely going to be Scheffler for me. Scheffler fits the profile of a guy you feel like would play well at a links track. Also, go to our unofficial world golf rankings, which I absolutely love. Scotty Scheffler, a top 10 player in the world by all metrics. And I've believed that since he was on the Korn Ferry Tour, when he was just dominating that thing. There are players on the Korn Ferry Tour. He can go low. He can play well in difficult setups. I think that this kind of a track, I think just something that's going to be a little quirky, difficult. I think Scotty Scheffler can kind of ride the wave in this, a decent win player, which is a great category. We could go on a complete tangent about who is a good win player and who's not. And
we've only got 13 minutes, sadly. Yeah. We would need another hour and a half to go over Apex height, let me tell you.
But somebody check into the Jason Rouslin, Eric Lindquist lecture that we would be putting on Twitch in an hour and a half. I don't know. It would go on for a while. But I definitely think that Scotty Scheffler, a guy that also is going to be in a lot of my lineups, I think he would kind of be the main source of where I'm going to. I don't even think you have to go like 3X on any of these guys. I mean, Scheffler's still 14%. I don't think you need to get 42% or anything. I usually make sure I never get over 40% of anybody in my 150 builds. Not really a big part of my process. It seems to be what a lot of top tier players, specifically when Alex Baker does. I think that there is definitely something to that long term.
Okay, so a couple of more names in the leverage value range. Who is the guy of the next bunch that you want to play at 2X based off of low ownership this week? I think you got 4 options. It's Tony Finau, Will Zalatoris, Webb Simpson, and who's my last one? Sorry.
I don't know. None of those 3 sound very appealing to me, though. So what? I'll take option. I'll take unknown door number 4.
Adam Scott.
I love Adam Scott.
That worked out so perfectly.
I like Adam Scott and I like Justin Rose. I mean, let's just pretend that it's 2008 and let's run that back.
I'm in.
I think both of them set up really, really great. They're coming in at 6-7% owned. That's stupid. They're both guys that have had so much experience. Adam Scott is a dumb shot away from having 2 claret jugs. Definitely a guy. He lost that playoff. I know. I believe it was the Sergio playoff that he had. I cannot recall here at the moment. I just know that he had the close second, and then he goes out and wins the Masters coming around the next year. But he's just shown an ability to play everywhere. A lot of Aussies kind of showing up in my lineups, whether or not that's a thing that is a drawn out narrative, but they do play the firmer, faster, Royal Melbourne's type growing up, those kind of golf courses perhaps. And, you want to talk about a little bit of a narrative there, but whether it's Leishman, who I'm not getting carried away with, but I'm getting carried away with Jason Day. I'm getting a little carried away here also with Adam Scott. So sign me up for both.
Yeah, I do. I like Adam Scott a lot. He would be my pick in this leverage value range to go with. Again, like you said, I'm not going to get 60% Cantlay this week as much as I like him. So if I'm going to go my true 2 or 3x leverage, it would be through Adam Scott. 15 or 20% likely gets that done based on the ownership. All right, so we got 10 minutes here. We're going to go through our Make the Cut segment. It is more rapid fire than it is anything else. Maybe we'll say a comment or two on the golfer, but more or less, we're just looking to get them through to the weekend. Then we'll go into a couple of our deep dives and then hot takes with a couple of our favorite monkey knife fight player prop bets to end us out before we get on out of here. So, okay, let's go ahead and we're going to start off at the top. Shane Lowry, defending champion, Matt Fitzpatrick coming off a second place. Are both of them here this weekend?
Yes. Matt Fitzpatrick, I have a stupid amount of. I believe he is my second highest owned golfer this week. So there's that. You want to talk about misprices from the Monday show? 7,900 is a misprice for Matthew Fitzpatrick. I have to be going to that number quite a bit. You want to talk about experience over there in Europe? It's there. I don't like a lot of the recent form, but I think I'm just going to throw most of it out the window here. I'm going to just take the decrease there in tournaments and just bet on the player. I feel good about it. The T2 at the Scottish Open was the first thing we had seen in a while out of him. I don't really count the Palmetto, the top 10 there, but Scottish Open, we saw some life. I think he's going to roll that into this week.
Chat mentioned Sergio Garcia being the second best iron player in the world behind Morikawa. Yeah, maybe close. I don't know if I'd give him second best, but since he turned in his magic beans at Augusta and won that event, it has been terrible in majors. However, Eric, we saw a breakthrough at the U.S. Open. I'll call it a breakthrough again because it had been some time. But he looked good. And he Open championships prior to a couple of years ago, he had the best record that we could find of anybody. So are you back into Sergio at 7,600 this week, playing all 4 days?
I'm not mainly because I don't know, maybe it's a temperament thing. Maybe it's I just don't like to play Sergio Garcia very much anymore. Some of the results, it's not my favorite click in the entire world. I can't play everybody. And I think if you look at just iron play, sure, that's great. But there's a lot of other elements to golf that worry me about Sergio Garcia going into this week.
Abraham answered Joaquin Neiman, 2 Presidents Cuppers struggled at Opens. I brought that up kind of at the top of the show. I've got them both continuing to struggle.
I'm fine with Answer. I'm more willing to go to Answer. I think Waco, we had talked, I misspoke a little bit. I mean, you look at his off the tee game. Yeah, Waco can definitely get it done in that regard. But, I just don't think that he's going to be able to do his normal, get it out there and wedge it. Like I want him in the Rocket Mortgage Classic. I do not want him at the British Open.
I think that's fair. A fair assessment. A great question from Beat Boss coming. How much salary are we leaving on the table? Before you answer that, I want to tell you that the winning $10 lineup from the United States Open had a total salary of 100%, Eric. One would think in a 250,000 contest, entry contest, that would be duplicated, right? It wasn't. And the reason why it wasn't, left $500 on the table. It automatically makes you unique. Maybe not every single lineup, but leaving salary on the table in these $10 contests where there's 250,000 entries, that is how you can diversify and play chalk. You can do both. Nothing is shown better than that win. So that just wanted to do a quick aside there. Okay, a couple more guys we got to get to. You mentioned Francesco Molinari. Sounds like maybe you don't think he's going to play the weekend, even though he's kind of like a mini Brooks Koepka, if you will.
Yeah, he's 1% right now. I thought he was going to come in a little bit higher owned. I think that was the whole reasoning that I thought maybe people would be clicking on it because he does feel like a guy who's going to play well here in these type of opens. Obviously, when we have the W, he went on that hot run where he went first, second, the Quicken Loans, John Deere, and the Open in 2018. It's been a long time removed from 2018. I'll get to a tiny bit, but nothing crazy.
Yeah, I do like him a decent bit. Not as much as I like the set of these next 3 guys. I want you to tell me if any of them are going to miss the cut and then tell me who you like in a row. Brandon Grace, Ricky Fowler, Harris English, three big names at 73 and 7,200.
Ricky Fowler's going to win the Open Championship. So
whoa, why didn't you save that for our hot takes, my guy?
Oh, well, sometimes I want to just everybody's saying things, and I wanted to say my thing because I wanted to get it out there. We have 5 minutes left. I wanted to make sure that it was noted that the one guy that I'm taking a very overweight stance to, and I just absolutely love. So Ricky Fowler, let's just go down this little rabbit hole super quick because this is my guy this week. He is going to make or break a lot of what I'm doing in some of the, like the $100, $200 single entry. I'm going to be playing a lot more stuff than I normally do in those regards. And it's going to be Ricky Fowler that's going to be a big part of it. So his putter has been so much more improved. 3 of his last 4. So if you throw out the miscut at the Travelers, we'll just group these 3 together. We've seen 3.1, 4.2, and 4.6 strokes gained tee to green. We've seen him be positive putting, 0.4, 3.9, 4.4. His putter had been so abysmal. He was going on this run where he was losing like 7 strokes putting at the Arnold Palmer, 3.8 at the Waste Management, 3.7 at the Farmers, just losing strokes left and right. Everywhere. If that putter is corrected, the guy's getting off the tee. He just finds a way, strokes gained around the green. Did you know he's only had 2 rounds of golf where he's been more than a stroke missed strokes gained around the green in his last 13. So the guy is just a stalwart in exactly what you're talking about, getting the ball in the hole. I think Ricky Fowler gets in the mix for sure, a top 5 plus 1,300. Fire it up.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Everything seems to be pointing in the right direction. He made one big putting change, as Ricky has done a couple of times in his career. Mm-hmm. When he gets cold with his blade style putter, you golfers will know what I'm talking about. Mallet he went to the more mallet style. He switched back from the mallet to a newer blade, not his exact older blade. It's a little bit more heavier. Looks like he's putting much better. And listen, Ricky Fowler won golf tournaments from his putting, from his short game. He was never an elite ball striker. Good, but never elite. So again, I love him here this week. So does that mean you're out on Harris English and Brandon Grace, or is it just that there's so much Ricky love?
I'm off on both of them for the most part. If I had to play one, if I had to get carried away with a little bit with one, I'd get to Brandon Grace more. Harris English, I think there's just not just regression, but this is just a different kind of way of playing golf. He's getting a ton of ownership. I want to be half the field on it.
Gotcha. Okay, so we got 3 minutes left. Let's go into our deep dives quickly. I thought we covered most of the guys that I wanted to cover. We can cover them in deep dives, though. We already mentioned Lucas Herbert and Sam Burns, 2 plays that I think you can absolutely look at below 7,000. Stuart Sink is another one that you and I love to talk about. I'm in on. Are you in on this week?
No, I'm not this week. And I thought I was going to be in at the beginning of the week. He's just kind of picked up traction. It seems like people are going to get there. And I don't know, considering I just jammed 100% Steve Stricker as a 54-year-old at the John Deere, you'd think that this would be...
We got him through the cut, though, did we not?
I was going to say after +2 through whatever, I was already just about to like chuck my laptop. I live on the 4th floor. That's a bad place to live when you're tilting. But yeah, I definitely felt all right with the Steve Stricker result. It could have gone really, really well. But I think that looking at the rest of this range, there's guys that stick out to me a little bit more. Like Steve Stricker's fine. Steve Stricker is okay. I just don't know that I'm going to win a milli maker with him. I don't know if I'm going to be doing anything in that regard. Feels more not, I hate just saying, oh, he's cashier, but I think that it feels like a guy that is just going to kind of be okay at 6,900. I would rather take my shots. Even Kevin Kistner has started to show a little bit of something here and there. Tied 8th. I'd rather get to a little bit more of him in that exact same range. And even like further down, I know that it's the name that we had talked about a tiny bit, but Lucas Herbert, just sign me up for him as well. 6,800, first at the Irish Open, tied 4th at the Scottish Open, plays these link styles really, really well. He was a guy that popped to the top of my model over there.
Not only those the win in the T4, but last year in the same 2 events, T7, T4. So it's not just it's really good for Herbert. I don't need to click many more names down here because of that, but a couple of more since we only have a minute left. Keegan Bradley is a guy name that I want to throw out. Lucas Glover, obviously coming off the win at the John Deere. I look at Michael Kim that did it a couple of years ago, came over and ended up playing well enough, especially at that price. So Lucas Glover, he'd be my last guy in. Before we get to hot takes, anybody else below 6,500 besides Burns that have actually made your lineup?
Johannes Veerman is in my lineups. Also 3rd Irish Open, T8 Scottish Open. He has 6,100. That is the lowest that I mean, he's the only guy I think under 63 that I have any exposure to.
I'm glad you brought him up because I do have some exposure as well.
Yep.
I'd have been sad if I missed him. Okay, hot takes. You said Ricky's going to win. I love it. So I want you to give me your top prop of the week. If you need to look for a second, I can tell you mine. Patrick Reed, Louis Oosthuizen, over 12.5 birdies. Find it on Monkey Knife Fight. Promo code Awesemo. You're going to get $100 deposit there. I love it. I think that even though it's a par 70, even though I think it's going to play a little harder, Patrick Reed and Louis Oosthuizen are going to put up at least 16 birdies. I think that 12.5 is way too low.
I really like that call. I think bunching some of these birdie makers together, for me, just give me JT in just about every single format. I want him kind of putting into the bunch of birdies. We can put him into that, going for the 70.5, going for the 3X in that number. I think I really like going to him. I will also group together in it. Let's take the John Rahm chalk, because again, one of the beautiful things about playing on Monkey Knife Fight is you don't have to worry about ownership. You can play the best plays. And so I'll put those two together. You can round out your third with whomever else you want on the top end. If you want to get exposure to somebody like Jordan Spieth in a spot where you think he can make a lot of birdies, but also make a 7 or an 8 here or there, that's another solid way to go do it. So group those three together in some game types and win some money.
And that's the birdie maker contest over there, that you're allowed to choose your own golfers rather than picking, like I said, the one that I'm talking about. You have to pick the more or less for Oosthuizen or Reed. So, okay, last note here for me as the actual hot take. Bryson DeChambeau misses the cut. Jordan Spieth or Justin Thomas wins. And Brandon Grace, another top 10. Eric, that's going to do it for us here on the PGA DFS Live Before Lock show. We're going to be hanging out in our Slack chat. So get on in on the Awesemo Plus side. Great time to do so. Plenty of time. Still 5-6 hours until tee off. And until next week, everybody, where we got the Olympics coming up. Good luck. Somebody take down the million, and we will see you next week. Cheers, everybody.